I just saw like the scene in LA. Like it was so many people out there chasing their dreams, and it was just like, man, listen, if I want this bad enough, I ain't gonna let nothing stop me from getting it.
Hey, what's up, Ivory? How are you?
What's up, bro? How you doing?
Good.
Nice hat.
Oh, thank you. I like your hat as well. Do you have a light, or are you gonna just go with the how dark it is in there?
I mean,
Sorry,
that's the brightest I got it down here. I ain't gonna lie.
it's all right. Okay, cool. I just didn't know. Sweet. I'm Adam. Nice to meet you, man.
What's up, Adam? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. That's a cool fish tank behind you. Is that a fish tank?
Hey, yeah.
That's rad.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. Well, this is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about your song you just put out and the EP coming out, I think, the end of next month.
Yeah, for sure. The EP is coming out next month. The next single is coming out this month on the 27th.
Amazing. What's the next single? I've had a chance to hear the EP. It's great.
I appreciate it, bro. It's My Mind featuring Queen Niger. That's the next single that we dropping.
Okay, really cool. I think that's the second song on the EP.
Yeah, it's the second song.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, Survive too.
Very cool. Yeah, that Survive's on I think the following one, or another track on the album. Yeah, or EP. Yeah. Sorry. Very cool. Well, first off, I did read you're born and raised in Chicago, or from Chicago originally.
Yep. I grew up in Chicago. Hence that. Yeah, I grew up in Chicago.
Okay. What was that like? What part of Chicago?
South Side. I grew up like near the 9, like near the Green Line, like in the trenches, basically.
Okay. What was that like?
It was crazy. It was great. You know, I have a lot of good family out there. You know, but you know, of course, like a lot of people have a depiction of like Chicago being like a super dangerous place. It is a dangerous place when you're not from there, you know what I'm saying? But when it's home, you know, it's home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like you know, more so lately the media has been kind of pushing that narrative, right? Like,
for sure.
My father-in-law is from Chicago, and
right.
He's always seen the news like, okay.
yeah, they're gonna gas it up a little bit.
100%. Do you come from a creative household or a musical household at all?
Yeah, well, actually, like my grandfather was the lead singer of a group called the Hummingbirds.
Oh,
and
cool.
my sister sing in church, you know what I'm saying? But like nobody really like was super like in the business or nothing like that.
Okay. Did you ever have a chance to see your grandfather perform?
Nah. By the time I was of age to know anything about anything, my grandfather was well out of the business. But I actually I started learning how to play guitar on he gave me my first guitar.
Oh, really? Out of what age?
I was 12.
Very cool. What kind of guitar was it? Acoustic guitar or electric guitar?
No, it was a Fender Strat.
Nice. Yeah, what were you drawn to guitar, or like what inspired you?
I mean, I was always like drawn to music. Like I started playing piano when I was 9. So like you know, guitar was like the sister instrument, you know. And then I read something that said that like only 5% of the world can play guitar. And I was like, shit, I need to be a part of that percentage. And that was like the first time I was like, you know, let me tap into this.
That's fascinating that only 5%, because I feel like that's at least maybe when it just comes to musicians in general, that's one that a lot of people know how to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. So you played piano at 9. Was that something that you were put into from family?
No. Actually, like I self-taught. Like I taught myself how to play piano when I was 9. I taught myself how to play guitar too.
Oh, really? Did you have a piano in the house?
I actually started like I had like I used to love like classical music. Like, so that's actually where I started. Like most of the time, like when people start playing piano, it's like in church and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I was just like fascinated with like Beethoven, Moonlight Sonata, and like songs like that. So like I was intrigued, and that's what started like me, you know, getting into that.
Wow. And then from there you started playing guitar, and were you writing songs at an early age as well, or was that were you just trying to play other people's songs?
Well, I always was trying to create my own songs. That's why like a lot of times like when like I do song trivia and stuff like that, I'm so terrible at it because like I've always been writing my own songs. So like I'm super like, not to say I'm not like influenced by other things, other artists and stuff like that, but like I've always been creating my own music. So when people were listening to other people's music, I was listening to my own. So I've always been creating and writing songs.
That's cool. That's an interesting. I haven't talked to a whole lot of. I've interviewed a lot of artists, but not a whole lot that it kind of started in that way, or kind of just really went into it with their own, imagination, instead of, if you're trying to learn other people's songs and you start writing songs, maybe you will start to like kind of emulate the people you were learning before, but not really doing that. I mean, you're just going straight into it with like a totally blank canvas.
I played football when I was all my life. So like there was this guy named Mark Pratt. He had like a studio in the basement of his house, and he would let the football team come to his house and record in his studio. But like a week or two into that, nobody else was coming but me. I was the only person still coming consistently every day after practice. And that's where I kind of like honed being able to record myself, being able to produce for myself and stuff like that. So like, that's really where I first started like sharpening my sword and being a songwriter, producer, like for real. Like it was that opportunity to be able to do that. And it kept me out of the streets of Chicago. So
yeah, that's great. Interesting that like, was it in the beginning? I'm sure it was just like, oh, hey, like this guy's like, yeah, you guys can come over, I have a studio. And the team was like, oh, this is dope, we're gonna go make some music. And then maybe after the first or second time, we're like, oh, okay, I'm not really that interested in this. And you're like, I am, I'm gonna keep coming back.
Yeah, for sure. And it got to the point almost where he would just leave the basement door open for me, knowing that I would come. He wouldn't even come down. I would be down there literally like figuring it out. You know what I'm saying? But I can't even find that dude anymore. But I remember his name. His name's Mark Pratt.
Wow. I was going to say, is it somebody you still keep in contact with? It sounds like
nope. I couldn't even, dude, I could not find. I've tried. Trust me. I've Instagram hunted. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody that's so pivotal in your life like that. It's always a person that you want to like reach back to. But like I haven't been able to find him.
Yeah, 100%. Because you could say, look, I mean, I started really in your basement, and look what I've done now. I've written songs for these huge artists.
Yeah, it would probably be crazy to him. Yeah.
Wow. So with any of those songs that you're creating in that basement, did you put any of those out, or did you create any sort of like, CD mixtape or anything to hand out at school?
Man, honestly, it was only for like me listening it for myself, playing it for my family and stuff like that. And like I've always like felt like I've always been like a hoarder of my music. I don't know how good that is, but it's kind of playing out good for me now, because I see artists that have put out anything that they've done, and it just kind of trashes their career when people start digging. So like,
oh sure,
I've always felt like I didn't want to put out music until I felt like it was ready. And any artist that thinks like that is like super like in tune and trying to like perfect their craft. So like that period of my life was me just getting good. Like, LeBron James didn't just wake up and just could dunk the ball. Right. So that was like my period, like where I was like locking in and learning how to like really do it. Cause I didn't know how to do it. I just knew I loved to do it. And I knew that I had a special gift to do it.
Okay. And what was like, was there a point, or do you remember when you first were like, okay, this is good enough, I want to put it out? Or did you start working with other people first? Cause I know this is kind of like your debut, artist real project, right?
Yeah, well, this is my debut artist project, but like I've written 38 #1 records in the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you've when it comes to just like your own song, like, so it sounds like you're recording your own songs, and you're kind of keeping them, you're, like you said, you were kind of honing your craft, so to speak. And then when did that like kind of slide into more of the songwriter role, working with other artists?
I always kind of like looked up to like artists like The Dream, artists like Neo, R. Kelly, like artists that were able to transition from being a songwriter to an artist. Like that's always like been my vision. Like I've always been like, I'm gonna become a big songwriter and I'm gonna have all these hits, and then boom, I'm gonna be an artist. So that's been my vision. So it didn't start off me actually wanting to be an artist, because like I write rap songs, I write rock songs, I write pop songs, all different genres, so it's like there's no way like one artist can really drop all those different genres. So like that's kind of like my songwriting was my outlet to be able to, sometimes I want to get in my country bag and take out acoustic, or sometimes I might want to be ratchet and write a song for Sexy Red. Like who knows like how I'm feeling. So it's like all those different vibes and all those different modes that I get into, like songwriting has always been a good outlet for me. But You know, so I always say like songwriting has been the gateway to me becoming an artist. And like, so I'm just like, I feel like I'm right on track for my plan. You know, I know a lot of times they say like you make a plan and it don't always go and things don't always go as planned. But like so far my plan is working. You know what I'm saying? I've been a part of a lot of #1 records, a lot of platinum records, Grammy-nominated, like Grammy Award winning, sorry. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, I'm blessed, you know what I'm saying, in that aspect. And I just feel like, okay, now is the time, you know, for me to step out and put out music as an artist.
I love that. I've always been so interested in like getting into I'm not a songwriter by any means, but I think it's so cool to, I moved to Nashville about 2 years ago and meeting people that are just songwriters and you're like, oh yeah, I wrote blah, blah, blah. Like it's this huge hit for some other artist. You're like, whoa, like how did you get involved in that? Was it did you meet somebody and help write with them and then they ended up having a song that took off? Like how did you initially get into the
like
rooms
it happens
people?
different every time, but like, you know, to start my story, like basically like I moved from Chicago, lived in LA. I was homeless for like 9 months. I lived in my car and I just grinded and just studio hopped every opportunity I had to get in the studio. You know, after sharpening my story, I was trying to get in the room. I ended up getting in a room with a guy named Jimmy Deere, who was like a producer for Seal at the time. Me and him ended up moving to Atlanta, and that's where I met Ray Daniels. And Ray Daniels introduced me to Mike Karen, and that started me getting into the room with the producers. That's why I always tell like writers that are trying to get on, the way to get on is through the producers. The artists are more, you know, inclined to work with a producer than a songwriter. You know what I'm saying? Like, because a lot of artists, they don't even want that stigmatism, especially in the hip hop community, of having a songwriter. So like the gateway is the producer, and it's so many good producers in the business, and especially in Atlanta. Like, dude, like everybody that's somebody in the music business, especially like in the hip hop R&B community, is in Atlanta working. They out here, you know, they going to events. So like that's where the opportunities lie. So it was me getting in the rooms with these top producers and just showing, you know, the gifts that God gave me, and, you know, built relationships, and people's like, you know, Ivory Scott's the guy, you know. And then now it turns into the producers and the execs bringing me in the rooms with the artists, and then the artists falling in love with me, you know what I'm saying? And then like it turns into hits, you know what I'm saying? It's just that's how it folds out for me.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I've never heard anyone put it that way. So the building block kind of for you was you met a producer who you guys gelled together, then you moved to Atlanta, and then you start meeting other producers, and that's who you're getting introduced to different people, maybe in record labels or managers, and then their artists come in, and if they like you, I mean, that's the key, because then it's okay, I like Ivory and his songs are cool, so maybe I'll cut one of his records or whatever.
For sure. And then you have situations where like I always like when I first moved to Atlanta, it didn't just go up right away. Like it wasn't like I moved to Atlanta and it was like boom. I
Day two, you're in the studio.
Yeah, no. I when I moved to Atlanta, I worked at Red Lobster. I was a construction worker. Like I did everything I could to survive. But even while I was doing that, working 16 hours a day, I was coming home writing 10 songs a day. You know, I always like kept the environment to be able to record in every situation I've been in. When I always reference like growing up, I had my first studio in my mom's pantry at our house, you know, and like everywhere I've ever been, I've always had a studio and created the environment to create. So like, you know, throughout the process, of course, it wasn't just straight to the point, but it definitely, you know, got there, you know, eventually.
Yeah. Well, when you what took you to LA? Was it just you knew that's where the music was? Like,
so,
at what age did you decide to leave Chicago and go to LA?
I was 16. I graduated from high school when I was 16 years old. I went to LA and I had an opportunity with Sony Records to meet with them. And I met a guy that I had met was like, yo, Sony likes you, come down and meet with them. You know, the first time you hear a record label say, hey, we like you, you think you're going to get a big deal and your life's going to change. So I went down there and the meeting didn't go like I thought it would. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't ready. So the guy was like, yeah, all right, man, well, just go back to Chicago. We'll keep trying to work on something to happen. And I was just knowing that, you know, nothing in Chicago was for me, you know, that was going to take me where I wanted to be. So I decided to sell my keyboard, buy my first car, and live in that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? And just, you know,
so you just drove it out
grind.
to LA?
Yeah,
You're
dude.
like, okay, here's my car. I'm going to drive out to LA and figure this out.
Yeah, for sure. And I bought my first car in LA.
Oh, okay, in LA.
Yeah, I bought it in LA. I never went back to Chicago. When I went to LA on that one trip, it was a one-way ticket. I never went back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I never went back. After that meeting, I was like, no, this is where it's at. Because I just saw like the scene in LA. Like it was so many people out there chasing their dreams. And it was just like, man, listen, if I want this bad enough, I ain't gonna let nothing stop me from getting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when it comes to that, I mean, you're right. There's so many people out there trying to fight for the few spots that there are,
yeah,
right? In
the
industry.
Few spots for real. Yeah,
so
that's real.
You have to really, I mean, to take it to the, you know, I'll live in my car. I'll do anything it takes to get this to work out.
Yeah. Because, you know, you set your eyes on something like I always say, like, you know, I've seen the bottom, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like I had a hard turbulent life coming up, you know what I'm saying, in Chicago, you know, not having things, not even having the essentials or the necessities. And so I knew what the bottom looked like. So going through that much in my life, you know what I'm saying? Like I realized that there was nothing harder, you know what I'm saying, than, you know, me living in my car. Okay, so what? It was my first car. You know, it was closed doors. You know, it was something so I could put my clothes in the trunk. I could shower by the pool at the apartments. I could meet people, you know what I'm saying, and give me opportunities. And sometimes I want to come in, take a hot shower type vibe. You know, it's like I had relationships. I was in relationships with girls, didn't even know I was homeless.
That's amazing.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
okay, let's just hang out at your house tonight.
So, you know, I never, because one thing about me, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I never wanted to pity. You know, I put myself in that position. I could have went back home. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't, there was nothing that happened in my life for me to be homeless in LA. I chose that. You know what I'm saying? I decided that. So I didn't want the pity. Like, I wouldn't tell people like, man, I'm down on my luck. I need some help. I'm homeless. No, I was grinding. Like, it was a part of my story. You know what I'm saying? It made me get up every day and strive for what I wanted. Knowing that, you know what I'm saying, there wasn't nothing back home for me, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it means that much more, I'm sure, too. Like, okay, I remember when I was living in my car, and now look, I've got, you said you had 31 hit records in a year. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
So when you get back, so then you move to Atlanta, you start working with people. I mean, you've worked with some of the biggest artists on the planet.
For sure.
And at what, like, was this a recent endeavor to want to do this EP, or was this always something that, well, you said earlier that you knew that you wanted to do songwriting and then get into, you know, put out a project as an artist, but have you been taking maybe some of the songs you've been writing with, or, you know, not with, but over the years, and kind of keeping those and being like, okay, at one point I'm going to put this out?
Yeah, so like particularly like the first song I dropped as an artist, Just Like Me, was the last single we dropped. The first single we dropped under Monarch was featuring Eric Bellinger, produced by OG Parker and Hitmaker. But it was a song that me and Hitmaker and Eric Bellinger were just writing for a Chris Brown pack. So we were like, we get together and we write like 10 songs a session, and like, okay, and then but this particular time, you know, I came out the booth and everybody was just like, nah, this song's for you. You got to keep this song. And at the time, I wasn't even really like thinking about, you know, I was starting to make money as a songwriter. I wasn't too much caring about, you know, trying to, you know, be an artist. But they saw it before I was even ready to do it. So like, yeah, sometimes, you know, I'll be in sessions and there'll be songs that I'll just be like, I might just get off and I'll be like, yo, this feels like it's me. It feels like Ivory Scott. So like, you know, records happen like that along the way. But like recently, you know, I felt like, you know, in the past year before I linked with JY and Monarch and Abe, before linking with them, I, you know, always kind of had a vision of transitioning into being an artist, but it was never the right situation. Like I had offers from other labels to be an artist, a lot of deals, a lot of situations, because, you know, you start writing hit records, they start looking at you, listening to the references and saying, who's the guy on the reference? You know, who is he? You know, and then they see what's up. They're like, oh, he got the image. He can do it. Like he's an artist. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you get a lot of offers, you know, he starts, but they just weren't the ones I was looking for. It wasn't the energy like that I was looking for. I always wanted to transition and be priority. And I feel like that at Monarch. So I transitioned, you know what I'm saying, did the deal with them. And this is like the first project that Ivory Scott's dropping as an artist. So it's gonna be hit worthy. And I got a lot of crazy features on it. It's a movie.
That's exciting. That's so exciting. So yeah, I would imagine, because you've been in the industry for so long, and you've written so many big songs, that people are going to be like, oh, hey, like, and I've heard that that's also because now your resume, you've stacked your resume with,
for sure,
Ed Sheeran and Madonna and Chris Brown and all these people. It's like, that probably also opened a lot of doors for you to work with other big artists. What was like the first song that you had done that like, or the first one that like became like a big hit, and you were like, oh my, like this is it, like this is what it feels like.
The crazy thing is like Peru, like when we did that record, although it was a party when we did it, I did not know that record was gonna go crazy like it did. You know what I'm saying? Like when I went in that session with Fireboy, Tina Davis basically brought me out to San Francisco and was like, yo, I want you to work with Fireboy. He's a Nigerian artist. He's dope. We got good visions for him. It was really me just investing in something that wasn't blind investment. I didn't know that record was going to do so well. And when I saw how big it was, and then people was like, oh, you did Peru? People were going crazy on it. It didn't affect me until I saw my BMI. And I was like, oh, okay, that's why y'all gassed up. This is doing some numbers. So it's great.
That's so awesome. And then so now you're gonna put another single out in a couple weeks or a week or so.
Yeah, like 27.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me about that song, and then I want to hear about kind of like the plan for the EP, if you're gonna do any like touring or shows or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. Like the next single that we dropping, of course, my project is executive produced by Hitmaker, but like we got heavy producers on there like OG Parker, Romano, Mike Woods, like some of the biggest producers, Diego Ab, like are on the project. But the next single is produced by OG Parker, Romano, and Hitmaker. It's a song that I did in Miami a little bit ago, intentionally for the project. And then I sent the song to Queen because Queen had already said that she wanted to be a part of my project. And so I was just trying to find the right song. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes people like 4 songs and they're like, oh, let's get her on this one. But it felt right. I sent it to her within seconds. She texted me back like, yeah, that's the one I want to get on. So I flew to Atlanta. Yep. I flew to Atlanta, came back to Atlanta, got in the studio with her. We did her verse on it. And then, from there, we just shot the video a couple weeks ago. It's directed by Spud McKenzie. And
no way.
It's a vibe, man. It's a movie.
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna say that's gotta be an epic video. Yeah. Where'd you guys shoot the video?
We shot it in Atlanta.
You did? Wow.
It's crazy too, man. We got like robotics and all, robotic arm. Like it's a movie.
That's awesome. What can you tell us about it at all, or no?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about it. So basically, the thing, so my first single was called Just Like Me. And it was basically, the song was about me trying to find a girl just like me, somebody that can relate to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all need somebody in our corner that we can sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a homebody. You know what I'm saying? I don't like to be all out in the streets, clubbing every day. You know what I'm saying? I'm a homebody. So I need somebody that matched that energy. So like, that was the first single, Just Like Me. But like, so the next song, My Mind, is basically a song saying, I finally found, what I'm saying, the one. But the twist is that I basically created her, so like the video is me basically creating Queen Naija. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's since I've had trouble finding a girl just like me, why not build one, be a scientist? So basically, I'm a mad scientist in a lab and I'm creating, Queen Naija.
That's cool. That's a really cool video.
It's cool, man. It's a cool vibe. Awesome. Something a little different.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then the EP comes out at the end of October. And are you doing? Are you going to be performing at all for it, or doing any shows like in Atlanta or?
Yeah,
LA?
For sure. I'm gonna. So we're dropping the EP. The EP is entitled B. So it's B before Ebony. The name of the actual album is Ebony. That's the name of the project. But we're dropping that top of the year. This is just a teaser of it, an EP. You know what I'm saying? Just a portion of the actual project, Ebony.
Oh, so you have the whole album's coming out at the beginning of next year?
Yeah, 12 songs. So the whole project is coming. I got crazy. I got Ty Dolla $ign on it. I got Bleu on it. I got Tink on it. I got Sukiana on it. I got like it's crazy. It's
star-studded. So album.
Yeah. So but the album is coming. So like we about to drop 4 more songs as a part of the EP coming at the end of October. And then, of course, we're going to be touring. We're going to be getting outside with it. We got a couple like very intimate shows coming up. And then I'm going to be hopping on some tours with some of my, you know what I'm saying, the people that I work with, the big artists in the business, and popping out. Let's, you know what I'm saying, get these records #1.
That's amazing.
So a lot coming. It's a lot coming.
Yeah. And do you have the album done, or are you still working on it?
Well, I'm shy like 3 songs. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay. I got like songs that like I never like to choose without having choices. You know what I'm saying? So like I'm gonna say I'm always gonna be working on it until it's time to really turn it
until it's out.
You know what I'm saying? Until it's out. But yeah, we basically got like the meat of it. But you know, it's just a few holes to fill.
Love it. Well, Ivory, thank you so much, man, for taking time to hang out with me today. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, for sure.
Yeah. I have one more question before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists, songwriters, musicians.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely do. Like, you know, it's a tough business to be in. Like, even when you do get a deal, when you sign your first publishing deal, you might think like your life is going to change instantly, but you still going to have to get it out the mud. So, you know, don't expect anything great to happen overnight. You got to keep striving for what you want, you know, keep digging, get it out the dirt, and you got to outwork the opposition, because somebody out there working way harder than you. You know, when I used to go to sleep at night, I used to put a picture of Kanye West, a poster of Kanye West on my ceiling. So when I was laying down, I look up at the ceiling and I would just think to myself, like, Kanye West ain't asleep right now. He probably working. So, you know, you got to be inspired. You know, you got to be heavily inspired. You got to strive for what you want. And you got to know that it's always going to be somebody on your heels trying to take your spot.